Hi Ho students, it's Mr. Kaczynski. I'm here with a special lesson for you on solving equations with variables on both sides. It's time to beef up the difficulty level of solving equations, and this is probably the next logical step. So here we go. I've got these based on levels as IXL calls them when they show me results. So level 1 question. 4d equals 6d minus 6. So we got a variable d, and it's on both sides of the equal sign. So we got the equal sign right here in the middle. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do to solve this equation, I've got two options. I could subtract 4d from both sides, or I could subtract 6d from both sides. I'm going to choose subtracting 6d from both sides because if I subtract 4d from both sides, that just gives me 0 over here and everything else is on the right, and that doesn't really help me. What I want to do is cancel out this 6d, so I'm going to subtract 6d from both sides, and that gives me this new equation here. Negative 2d equals negative 6. 4d minus 6d is negative 2d. This negative 6 or minus 6 becomes negative 6 because it's 6d minus 6d is 0, and 0 minus 6 is negative 6. All right. And at this point, we'll divide both sides by negative 2. It's basically just a one-step equation at this point. Divide both sides by that negative 2, because right now d is being multiplied by 2, and the inverse operation of multiplication is division. So divide both sides by negative 2, and we get our answer, which is d equals 3. Negative 2 divided by negative 2 is 1, so we have 1 times d, which is d, and negative 6 divided by negative 2 is 3. We'll go ahead and check our answer as well. So we'll do 4 times our answer 3. There's my left side of my equation. And I'll do 6 times my answer 3 minus 6. That's the right side of the equation. And I also get 12. We'll talk about other ways to check this as we progress. Level 2. All right, so now we've got variables on both sides. We also have constants on both sides. We call this negative 1 and this 5 constants, okay? So the way I've chosen to do this one is to subtract 3h from both sides. How about we change that to from both sides? All right. Subtract 3h from both sides. I did some editing and forgot to change that one word. All right, so that'll give me this equation. Negative 3h minus 3h is negative 6h. That negative 1 or minus 1 is still there. Still got the 5, but right over here we've got this positive 3h, and when I subtracted 3h from it, I got 0. So 5 plus 0 is 5. And that was why I subtracted 3h from both sides in the first place. I could have added 3h to both sides. That would have given me positive 6h on the right and negative 6, and 0 on the left, but this is the route I chose to go. That does give me a negative coefficient, this is called, in front of the h value. That's okay, we can deal with that. Alright, so my next step is going to be to add 1 to both sides. Add 1 to both sides. And that's going to get rid of that minus 1 right there. Negative 6h minus 1 plus 1 is just negative 6h, and 5 plus 1 is 6. So there's my next step. And then lastly, just like the last thing we did over here was division, the last thing I'm going to do here is division. So I'm going to divide both sides by negative 6. Negative 6h divided by negative 6 is just h, because negative 6 divided by negative 6 is 1. And 1 times h is h. And 6 divided by negative 6 is negative 1. So there we go. Let's show a different way to check this one. I'm going to go into the y equals. I'm going to graph the left side of the equation. I'm going to use x instead of h. And I'm going to graph the right side of the equation. Alright, so I've got the left side and the right side, and when I graph them, you can see at negative 1, right there, that's negative 1, that's where they cross. So if I press the trace button and I type negative 1, that takes me right to the intersection of the two lines. So notice this one's got a y-intercept of 5 with a positive slope of 3. The other one's got a y-intercept of negative 1 with a negative slope of negative 3. But the key here is that they both cross each other at -1. So there's another way to check answers. Next up, I'm going to solve this level 3 question. So this has got variables on both sides. It's also got this added step right here of that I need to simplify, that 3w and 8w can be combined together to make 11w. So that's just a one added step. After that, it becomes a lot like this level 2 question. I've got variables on both sides, 7w and 11w. I've also got constants on both sides, 10 and -10. So the first thing I'm going to do is take care of those variables on both sides, get them all over to one side. And the way I'm going to do that this time is to subtract 7w from both sides. Subtract 7w from both sides. Okay, that'll give me this. That 10 equals 4w minus 6. 7w minus 7w is 0. 0 plus 10 is 10. Over here, I get 11w minus 7w is 4w, and I still have the minus 10. Okay, so now I got all the variable part on the right, the 4w. I need to get rid of this -10. I'm going to do that by adding 10 to both sides. So add 10 to both sides. That'll make this part 0. And on the left side, I get 20. So 10 plus 10 is 20. 4w minus 10 plus 10 is 4w. And again, the last step is usually division. I won't say always, but usually division. So I'm going to divide both sides by 4, and I get 5 as my answer. So let's check this one last way. I'm going to go back into the y equals, and I'm going to do the left side of the equation, 7w plus 10, but I'm typing x instead of w. And on the right side, 3w plus 8w minus 10. And then I'm going to go to a table. So instead of graph, I'm going to go second graph. Okay, and I'm going to go to 5. And 5 is where both outputs are the same, that I get 45 out on both sides. So 5 is the place where they are equal to each other. So to solve or to check our answers, we've done it algebraically, we've done it graphically, and we've done it numerically with a table. All right, so at this point, if you've done taking notes over levels 1, 2, and 3, you've got a good place where you can get started practicing on IXL right now. But I am going to go on to some very more difficult questions. You're welcome to check these out at your own leisure. All right. So a level 4 problem. It's a lot like the level 3 problem, but the reason I chose this one is because we do have to simplify again. I got this 12 and this -2 that can be combined, and that can be confusing for a lot of people because a lot of people might think that it's 12, plus 2, which would be 14. It's actually 12 minus 2 is 10. All right, so again, then after this, it becomes a lot like the level 2 problem. You have variables on both sides, you got constants on both sides. I'm going to solve this one by subtracting 13x from both sides. Subtract 13x. That'll get rid of the positive 13x over here. So I'll have 11 on the left and 10 plus x on the right, because 14x minus 13x is 1x. We usually just say x instead of 1x. All right, one step now and I'm done, and that is just to subtract the 10 from both sides, get this constant 10 away from the x. So subtract 10 from both sides, that'll give me x equals 1. So I said usually the last step is division, but in this case we don't have to do that because x is only being multiplied by 1. So there's really no point in doing like dividing both sides by 1 to get rid of the 1, because that wouldn't change anything. So all right, so 1 is my answer. I'm going to show algebraically. Let's check this answer. I'm going to go, let's do this actually. Let's go 1 stored as x. Some of you have shown that in class. Some of you probably haven't seen it or maybe don't remember, but the store button is right here. So there we go. I stored 1 as x. So like 2x is 2, because 2 times 1 is 2. X plus 5 is going to be 6 because 1 plus 5 is 6. All right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to type in the left side, 11 plus 13x. That gives me this. And 12 plus 14x minus 2 should give me the same value. It does. that means I've got the right value. So, if I just put 11 plus 13 and then parentheses a 1 right there, I don't have to use a calculator to check my answers either. I can use some mental math, but all right. Level 5 question. Level 5, it's got a bunch of decimals. It's got some simplifying that needs to occur, and the simplifying is where I'm going to start. I've got a negative 13.62 and a positive 8.64 here. I'm going to combine those together to make negative 4.98. So again, I did negative 13.62 plus 8.64, and that gives me negative 4.98. So you got to remember that that minus sign right there is kind of like acting like a negative sign. All right, again, now, I mean, we do have decimals, which makes it look kind of ugly, but the process remains the same. Get the variables on one side, then get everything away from the variables, then basically divide on both sides. So I'm going to do this one by subtracting 3.5s from both sides to get rid of this 3.5s. That gives me this equation, 6.4s minus 3.5s is 2.9s. Over here, I mean, just 11.26 just comes straight down, as does the negative 4.98 is still negative 4.98. You got to think of those subtraction signs as like negative signs. All right, next up, let's subtract 11.26 from both sides. Again, I want to get everything away from this 2.9s. But I got the variables on one side. I get everything that's not a variable over to the other side. And when I do that, I'll get 2.9s equals negative 16.24. Negative 4.98 minus 11.26 is negative 16.24. Yes, you can use a calculator to do that. That's not really what we're learning, how to add and subtract decimals. I'd hope if I took a calculator away from you, you could do that, but it would just take a lot longer. Last step, we're going to divide both sides by 2.9. 2.9 divided by 2.9 is 1. 1 times s would give us s. Over here, we just have to do some division. Again, we can plug that into a calculator. Negative 5.6 is our answer. Negative 5.6 is our answer. So I've already shown a few ways you could check your answer. I'm not going to show that again. I already checked my answer before I made the video, and that is the right answer. Level 6, this is level 6 because it's got some skills actually that we haven't even talked about yet this year. So I don't believe these kind of questions show up on IXL until you get over a 90, but I could be wrong. I haven't run all the way through it multiple times yet. So all right, so the first thing I have to do here is something called the distributive property. So this is multiplication. It's negative 7 times 3m minus 20. So it's negative 7 times both of these things. We'll talk more about that in both my algebra class and my math 8 class later this year. Like I said, this is upper level stuff. I'm putting it on here. It's advanced work though. So distributive property is that. So when I do that, negative 7 times 3m is negative 21m. And negative 7 times negative 20 is 140. Negative 7 times 3m is negative 21m. And negative 7 times negative 20 is positive 140. Okay, now I haven't even started doing stuff to both sides yet, and I'm not going to do that yet because the next thing I need to do is some simplifying. I see a negative 6m and a negative 21m. I can simplify, I can combine those together. Negative 6m and a negative 21m is negative 27m. Negative 27m. All right, so now we got variables on both sides. We got constants on both sides. I'm going to get all the m's on one side by adding 27m to both sides. Add 27m to both sides. That'll give me 15m minus 10 equals 140. 15m minus 10 equals 140. Because negative 12m plus 27m is 15m. The negative 10 just comes straight down. Negative 27m plus 27m is 0. That was the whole point. I wanted to get it off of this side and onto the other side. And then the plus 140 is still down here. It's positive 140. All right. Then I'm going to get everything away from this 15m, so this negative 10 I got to get rid of, and I'm going to add 10 to both sides. Negative 10 plus 10 is 0, so we'd have 15m plus 0 is 15m, and 140 plus 10 is 150. So I added 10 to both sides, And like I said, most steps, most of the time, there's only been one occasion where this hasn't been the case, where I'm going to divide on both sides to get my final solution. So I'm going to divide both sides by 15. So you always divide by this number that the variable m is being multiplied by. It's being multiplied by 15. How do you undo that? You divide by 15, and that gives you the solution of 10. Again, I've shown ways that we could check our answer. I already checked my answer before I ran the video. It is 10, so in order to save some time, I won't show that now. Hey, there's my bell. I got to go to my PE class, but I will post this. This is already posted on YouTube. You're watching it. You can watch it again if you want. You can pause things and definitely come ask me questions if you got questions about why I did certain things or why I didn't do certain things, because you might have other ways to solve it and you might be right, but these are the methods I chose. So all right, have a great day or evening, and I'll see you soon. Good luck.